to Kendamil's Expert Insight series. I'm Natalie from the Kendamil Healthcare team, and I am joined today by Erin Moore, founder of the Baby Feeding Coach. Hi, Erin, how are you?
Hi, doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Nice to meet you. Erin is a nurse practitioner, certified lactation counsellor, and a mother of two, so loads of experience.
Yes, I have two boys who are 6 months old and then a 3.5-year-old. And I've been a nurse practitioner for 8 years now and a
Oh, wow.
pediatric nurse for 13 years total. So I've
Okay.
helped a lot of moms.
Thank you. Doctors, paediatricians, and nurses will see so many toddlers in their practice, and we'll get a lot of questions from parents and caregivers around things like bottle feeding, how to move on from there. So, with that in mind, we are going to discuss how healthcare practitioners can help support and guide bottle feeding parents with the particular topic of moving from bottles to cups, which I'm sure we can both attest to as parents can be a bit confusing at times because there
Yes.
is loads of information out there. So hopefully we're going to roll through some questions, get some straight answers from someone with so much experience. So let's dive straight in.
Okay.
Erin, when should a baby start transitioning from bottle to a cup?
So babies should start transitioning from a bottle to a cup somewhere after 12 months. I like to tell parents that it's a marathon, not a sprint. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that the baby turns 1 and then they have to be off the bottle right away. But giving them a little bit of a time frame helps to really take that pressure off because there's a lot of transitions that happen around 1.
Mhm.
So taking that pressure off really helps them, and then we give them a longer term goal so they know that it doesn't have to be right here. But I do like to say that I like to introduce a cup starting around 6 months, not necessarily so a baby will be off the bottle between that 6 and 12 month period, but they're already introduced to the cup and they're starting to get used to it. So then when we do need to transition off, it's not something that's completely shocking to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And are there any specific signs that indicate baby is ready to start transitioning, either physiological or like behavioral cues?
So I always like to just let the babies lead the show versus having the parents lead the show. And so if the babies are interested, especially like your cup, I feel like babies are very interested in what the parents are doing. So if you notice that when you're drinking out of an open cup, your baby wants to do that too, that's a great thing to let them try if you feel comfortable with that and you're drinking something that the baby can drink, to
Yeah.
sort of just let them try. It might be messy, it might be
Mm.
very wet, but that exploration is definitely something that's very beneficial. And I should say that my baby is right now almost 7 months, and I notice that every time I am drinking out of a water bottle with a straw, he is so interested in it. So I mean, sometimes it's a little bit gross, but
Yeah.
I'll let him try and explore and see what it feels like to have that straw in his mouth. Just like I said before, it is a long term. It's a marathon. It is something that we're trying to do over time, not right now. You have to do this.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Um, what can a parent or caregiver do to prepare for that transition?
I think that realistically preparing your emotions, right? Because it is messy, and having realistic expectations of what is going to happen, that it's a different mouth feel from milk from a bottle, or from either formula or breast milk from a bottle, or breastfeeding when your baby is starting to transition to a cup. So especially if it's water, it's just a little bit, yeah, it's just a little bit different. So having a parent know that exposure is key, and then preparing themselves for, this is going to be messy. This
Mhm.
is going to be wet,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
baby's going to get messy. The baby probably won't be able to do all the things that you hope them to do right away. Um, as in, a lot of babies, they feel the water in their mouth that they're getting, and then they're not quite swallowing the water, so a lot of it ends up dribbling down their mouth. Some babies, like my older one, he took the water in his mouth, or whatever we would give him in the mouth after we transitioned to cups, so whole milk water, and then literally it would just spill down and he would just spit it out. Well, it took a while, and he did get used to that around 14 or 15 months, but we ended up using like a silicone bib,
Yeah.
and so it would catch the water or catch the milk, just to make things a little bit cleaner. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of it is changing your expectations and knowing that doing whatever you can do to make yourself feel comfortable with this transition, knowing that it's probably not going to be as seamless and easy as we would hope.
Yeah. So I suppose doing it sort of little and often, really, so that it's not just one big experience and then, another one the
Agreed.
week after.
Agreed. It's definitely about exposure. So I like to have parents start offering cups around that 6 month
Mm.
period. And am I expecting a baby to drink a lot of water at 6 months, or drink the recommended that 4 to 8 ounces at 6 months? No. If a baby gets a half an ounce, that's great. But really, it's just that repeat exposure day after day to get them used to um, the cup and then what to do afterward.
And if they're getting really agitated by it, I suppose a similar concept with potty training, if it's not going well, take a break
Hmm.
because they're gonna. So if they're getting really agitated by it, is it okay to just leave it for a bit and come back to it?
Yes, absolutely. So the last thing that I want parents to do when it comes to any sort of feeding of an infant is pressuring them to do something because we think that they should be following this timeline. When a
Mm.
baby starts associating this cup is a source of frustration because I am being forced, or I'm not interested, and you want me to do this.
Mhm.
I just say it's a lose-lose situation for everybody. The baby's not going to love it, and then the parent's going to end up being frustrated, and then it's this
Yeah.
perpetuating cycle of just discomfort for the baby, and it's not going to end up pretty, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's not nice to be in that position as a parent, is it?
Right.
So are there any cups that are recommended or that you'd recommend or not recommend?
So I think that there's a lot of information out there, especially in social media, of you should be using this cup and you should not be using this cup. I think we're starting to move away from the like spouted cups or the sippy cups,
Mm.
the ones with the valve. It's not recommended to use. So it's just very, very hard to suck and get the water from them, and the actual like suck swallow pattern can be a little bit off.
Mhm.
Most speech language pathologists, a lot of pediatric dentists recommend using a straw cup or an open cup, because ultimately that's going to be our goal, is to get them on one of those.
Mm.
And the traditional sippy cup is not necessarily needed. It is kind of that step up cup that really we can spend our time and our energy getting them to use an open cup or a straw cup, and then we can eliminate this middle step
Mm.
altogether.
So the straw and the open, obviously, yeah, are much closer to where you want to be in the end.
Right,
Yeah, in terms
right.
of
And I know a lot of
processes.
absolutely. And a lot of babies and a lot of parents have been using those 360 cups, like the Munchkin Miracle 360
Hmm.
cups. Um, they're nice because they do end up preventing a lot of spills. I think
Mm.
parents are used to them. Um, they're easy to clean, so there's a lot of benefits to them. However, a lot of providers are transitioning away from them because of this suck swallow pattern,
Yeah.
and then I guess it is not as optimal. But in my opinion, if a family has found something that's really working for them, go for it. Let's do it. And then we can start working on maybe getting the straw or using it as an open cup, um, to kind of transition away from that over a longer period of time.
Okay. So, accepting that you're not a pediatric dentist, it's not one of your
Yes,
many
yes.
skills. Um, are there any signs that, say, baby has a cup and they really like their straw cup, but you're noticing something? Would there be anything that you'd be noticing that was saying, "Oh, actually, this cup isn't right for my baby"?
Well, really, if there's a lot of frustration, there are a lot of good options for your baby, and a lot of babies will be very particular and partial to a certain cup.
Yeah.
So if a baby is not doing so great with an open cup, then maybe you do try a straw cup or a 360 cup or whatever a baby prefers. A lot of babies like this autonomy. So having a cup that's small enough for them to grip, or one that has like the little sides that they can pull up to their mouth, those are
Yeah.
all okay. I would just say if your baby's getting so frustrated because they're not able to do what you want them to do and they're not able to do what they want to accomplish, then let's try a different option.
Sure. Um, so if you're a healthcare practitioner and mum or dad is saying, "Okay, I've got an open cup, how do I
Mhm.
teach my baby to use this?" Because they're just whacking it off the table all the time. What kind of methods do you know of that we could
Right.
use?
Right, for the open cup, there are a couple approaches that I like to take. One, you can let them use your cup. So
Mhm.
you want to model the behavior that you want. So if your baby is watching you and knowing and learning what to do, that's always a great thing. So letting them have experience with that face on teaching. um there are the little cups that are like 2 ounces or
Yeah,
four
they're good,
ounces
aren't
that
they?
are
Yeah.
little grippy cups, and those are actually really nice because what they do is they go into the corner of a small
Mm.
baby's mouth. You can tip them up a little bit, so it's not like you're pouring it on them going like this, but tipping it up, filling it up most of the way, and then tipping it up and kind of letting them, it's almost like a cat, like letting them lap at it a little
Mhm.
bit, and then
Yeah.
not like really forcefully giving them water.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing that I've heard recommended by some speech language pathologists that end up working, and that's what I ended up doing with my son, is I ended up putting an applesauce pouch in there.
Yeah.
And so it was actually pretty thick. And then I would tip it up and he would drink the applesauce or like eat the applesauce there. And then I would slowly add more water and more water and more
Okay.
water until it's mostly water and just a little bit of applesauce. It's a little bit of
Yeah.
flavored water. And I would help him tip it up, or I would put his little hands on there and we would go together. And it ended up working really well. It's a labor of love
Mm.
over a month or two, but that's how he ended up learning how to use an open cup.
So that kind of puts the whole thing in slow motion for them then. So they get the sensory feedback without getting hit in the face by water.
Right. Because it's like nobody likes having that like flooding of their mouth with a bunch of water and then coughing and sputtering.
Mm.
So that can create this like negative, this negative experience with that. And then they're like, no, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
not going to use this open cup. So it's nice to have something like that because it's a slower approach and it tastes good.
yeah. So say baby's been having a little practice, been introduced from 6 months, and you sort of reach that milestone where you really want to drop the bottle now with the teats, and move on to cups, more
Sure.
regularly, if not completely. But baby doesn't want to and just is refusing to drop the bottles. What would you be your advice there?
Right. So after 1 year, the nice thing is milk, like whole milk or milk alternative,
Mm.
is not the main source of nutrients anymore. So as long as baby is eating really well, eating a balanced diet, I actually like the cold turkey approach.
Okay.
So just dropping the bottles. I know a lot of parents feel differently about that, but then just that repeat exposure, finding a cup that they like and will take. Um, Otherwise, you can do a slower approach to dropping bottles. So if there is a bottle Like say that they're doing bottles 4 times a day or 5 times a day, taking one that maybe is not the most opportune time for a family, and then just replacing that with a cup. So then the
Mhm.
one that's usually the hardest to get rid of is the one that's right before bed, because
Yeah.
babies often like to feed themselves to sleep, or they're used to that. And that's usually the hardest time to do that. So if we start making that little approach and we're getting rid of the other ones and offering a cup, um, most babies get used to it and then are more amenable to dropping that nighttime bottle.
So, what role does a baby's overall diet play in the ability to drop bottles successfully?
Right. So we, of course, the goal is for the baby, or I guess now they're toddlers, as they're going into that 1 year, we're making the transition from either breast milk or formula as the main source of nutrition to solid foods. So if there's a baby who's very, very picky, then it might be a consideration that we would continue using, like progressing to a toddler type formula. And
Mm.
toddler formulas are not created equally. Um, so I guess I would say that if a baby is doing very well or is eating a variety of foods, then it's okay if the baby's not getting as much through a cup. So a baby that would be taking most of their nutrients through solid foods wouldn't necessarily need that, 24 ounces of whole milk. So it's
Mm.
okay if things are not as defined as they are in the first year.
Thank you, Erin. That was really insightful. I think we covered a lot there. What we'll do is we'll tag any resources, websites such as the Baby Feeding Coach, obviously, in the comments so people can take a look there and see if there's any tips and follow up with that. But yeah, otherwise, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is fun.